I'd like to call the February 7th, 2022 Board of Commissioners work session to order. We're going to start with our Pledge of Allegiance, and tonight our solicitor, Lauren Gallagher, is going to lead us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deanna, will you take the roll call, please?
Denise Hall, President.
Here.
Catherine Carter, Vice President.
Here.
Martha Similaro, Commissioner.
Here.
Liz McNaney, Commissioner.
Here.
Ruth Damsker, Commissioner.
Here.
Sandra Zadell, Township Manager.
Here.
Megan Weaver, Assistant Township Manager.
Here.
Lauren Gallagher, Township Solicitor.
Here.
Nick Cross, Township Engineer.
Here.
David Duffy, Chief of Police.
Here.
David Burrell, Finance Director.
Here.
Van Reeker, Zoning Officer.
Here.
That's everyone.
Thank you. Next up, we have the announcement of our executive sessions, and I'll turn it over to our solicitor, Lauren Gallagher.
Thank you. The board did meet in executive session on February 1st to discuss potential litigation, and earlier this evening to discuss various items of personnel.
Thank you. Officer Townsend will be retiring from our police force, and we will be recognizing him at our business meeting next week. Next up is the public comments portion of the meeting. So we've added some guidelines to our public comment portion. We ask that when you arrive at our public meeting, you register. So you sign in on the clipboard and you put your name and your address. And then what we will do is we will read off the names, and everyone will have 5 minutes to speak. Unless we have 20 or more people, then we're going to limit the time to 3 minutes each. What else do I want to say about that? Also keep in mind that the public comment is assigned to the person who has signed up and can't be ceded to another person attending the meeting. So you only have your own 5 minutes. You don't have part of your 5 minutes to give to another person. And if you could also remember to help us keep our meetings respectful and productive by observing proper decorum, and remember that your comments are part of the public record. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment tonight, Deanna? No. Okay. Was there anyone who wanted to make one that didn't get to sign up? Yes. On Zoom. Okay. But before we do that, was there anyone here who didn't realize the change and wanted to make a public comment this evening? Okay, great. Go ahead with our Zoom. Okay, great. Hello, Judy?
Yes.
Hi. Could you state your name and your address, please?
Sure. It's Judy Vose. I live at 619 Whitaker Place.
Great. What is your public comment this evening?
My public comment is I would like to hear more about trail development status, and if there is no action happening, I would still like the trail development to be an agenda item. I might have missed something throughout the various meetings, and I'm not exactly sure the progress that we're at. I've heard significant talk recently about the Liberty Bell Trail, but not about the Powerline Trail. I know there was a history of the Powerline Trail where there was an RFP sent out in July of 2020. 3 bidders with Michael Baker being awarded, and there was they worked on a report including an online interest gathering. I don't know exactly what you want to call it. I did not hear the results of what Michael Baker's online gathering, information gathering results were. Also, I know that I think approximately in the spring of 2021, there was a survey. Actually, that might have been later. I'm sorry, I'm losing track of the timeline. But there was another online gathering, like survey of residents, and I never heard the results of that either. Is there any comment on these?
Oh, sure, Judy. Thank you for reaching out. Our township manager, Sandra, can fill you in where you left off.
Hi, Judy. This is Sandra Zadell. I'm the township manager. For the power line trail, we are still actively in that feasibility study. That's why you haven't seen any results yet. We've applied to PICO so when you put a trail in PICO's right of way underneath the power lines, you have to apply to them. It's like an engineering process. So Michael Baker did prepare that application and we've sent it to PICO, but we've been waiting, I think it's a little over a year now for a response from PICO. So we've sort of been on hold until we get that response from PICO, because until we know if we could possibly build a trail in the power line right-of-way area, we really can't continue forward with the feasibility study. As far as the Liberty Bell Trail, you are right. There was quite a lot of public interaction. We had an open house. We had surveys that we had on our website, and the wiki maps is what I think you're referring to. And we are also just about to hear the first draft as staff of the result of the power line trail feasibility study. So these studies take a bit longer maybe than people would expect, but there's a lot of engineering and information gathering. So I would think maybe this summer we might have something to talk about or maybe a little sooner for the power line or the Liberty Bell Trail. And the power line, we're sort of just in a holding pattern.
Thank you, Sandra. Does that help, Judy?
It does to a certain extent. With PICO not replying or not responding, what method is being used to stay on top of it and not just let it die? An email death, if you will, where it just falls into wasteland and nobody follows up on it. Is
So,
there any method happening?
Yeah, Judy, I follow up on it and my staff follow up on it pretty much every 2 to 3 months. But until PICO is willing to give us an answer, it's their property and we're sort of at their mercy.
Great.
So you're saying you follow up every 2 months?
Yes.
Okay.
We're definitely staying on top of it, Judy. Thank you so much for your interest. We really appreciate it. I'm glad you're excited about our trails. And like Sandra said, hopefully by the summer, we will have more updated information for you. Thank you. Do we have anyone else for the Zoom? Okay, great. So moving on, next up, we have our departmental reports, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to our manager, Sandra Zadell.
Hi, everyone. I have a fancy new clicker, so we're going to see if this works. Yay, so exciting. Usually I have to tell Megan to change the slides and it throws me off a little bit. So this month's manager's report, I sort of wanted to focus on our major achievements from 2021 and also talk about what we have ahead in the future in 2022. So some of our achievements in 2021 include the return of our full selection of Park and Rec events. I know this was wonderful for the community. We hosted Carnival, Fall Fest, all of the awesome Park and Rec events in a somewhat normal way. We increased our financial reporting in the public meetings with Dave Brill making a quarterly report. We started the K9 unit. We have Fury and Gunner. They're awesome. We're so glad to have them as part of our team. We completed the comprehensive plan, increased our street sweeping frequency, completed the Center Street lighting project, which if you haven't seen it, I really recommend going out and taking a walk. It's beautiful. Milled and paved numerous streets throughout the township, and an important part on that is that we were able to get ahead of the ADA ramp requirements where we did the streets that we're going to pave this year. The ramps have already been done, so it allows us to move forward with the paving earlier in the paving season. We piloted summer hours this year to be more accessible to residents. We continued work, as the last caller asked about, on the Liberty Bell Trail and Pico Power Line Trail feasibility studies. We created a new Unity for Kindness Day event.
hosted our first ever Arbor Day celebration, acquired over $1.5 million in grant funding for public safety, public works, and stormwater projects. We settled a successful contract with our police. We refinanced township debt to create cost savings, completed the WIP project, and took that flow to our plant, increased our training of township staff with free courses through our insurance provider, began the Human Relations Commission, trained staff in Google Translate, and set up translation services to better serve our non-English speaking residents, as well as were awarded the 2021 Governor's Award for Environmental Excellence with our, well, Wissahickon Trails was for their project, and we were a partner along with PICO and Merck. That is a lot for 1 year. For a staff of, non-uniforms and uniform combined, we have about 60 employees, and I think we really hit it out of the park last year with these accomplishments. Of course, many of the ideas are the board's great ideas that we make happen. Some of our favorite accomplishments. This is something I really like to take a moment to brag about Megan and her involvement here at the township. So Megan started working with us in 2019, and we've seen a 156% increase in Facebook followers. So Megan started in July of 2019. We had 710 Facebook followers. Now, most recently, we have 1,821. This is just on the township Facebook page. On Nextdoor, we saw a 65.73% increase and a 77% increase in Twitter. Megan also started our new township Instagram account, so that's still sort of in its baby phases and growing. It started in April last year. And another interesting point is our Facebook page reach is about 37,000, with 53% of the top cities in North Wales, Lansdale, and West Point, which is obviously that's where most of our, customers, residents reside. So really good news on citizen engagement. No comments? So major projects we have planned for 2022. We have some repairs we're going to be doing on the West Prospect Bridge, as well as our Haynes Run project design. That's one of our grant-funded projects, as well as our Town Pike Bridge design. That's also a grant-funded project. We are going to be spray lining numerous stormwater pipes throughout the town, and that helps to improve the infrastructure without disrupting the roadways. So it just happens underground, and there's so much less disruption to residents. We have plans to install all the signs as part of our Montco 2040 grant. Dickerson Road and Meadowbrook neighborhoods are being reviewed for stormwater improvement projects, which are planned for this year. We've plans to increase our police department security with a gate to secure equipment and vehicles, various roof repairs to our township building. We're working with the board on a review of our comp plan and project prioritization. We have an open space maintenance prioritization where we're looking to improve our open space areas and make sure they're really well cared for. That includes Jack's Lane, which started last year actually. We're looking to do a Newbury Basin retrofit. This basin is in the Newbury, off of Newbury Court, and we will be retrofitting that basin to be more environmentally friendly. Design and possible construction for a secure office entrance on our administration side. We have a new full-time fire marshal and emergency management coordinator, and he's doing a great job and really has upped how we're able to respond to emergencies. I know Park and Rec is planning a veterans memorial and planning for the castle refurbishment. We're upgrading our administration phones to voice over IP, and we have some WIP follow-up items for infrastructure projects at the wastewater treatment plant, including a clarifier replacement. We have so many public works projects this year that I had to make a Gantt chart, which for those of you that are engineers or project managers, you know what that is. We're really happy to be moving forward with all these projects from all the extra funding we received. And that is the end of my manager's report. Stay tuned in March or April. I'll be reporting on our commissioner's goals report. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you. So next up, Van, it is time for your report. I feel like I'm
just talking to the sky. So,
Thank you, Sandra. Can I be heard?
yes, we can hear you.
I'm not sure I can be seen, but okay. Thank you. Hi, everybody. So 4 items on tonight's agenda. And first is, have them if you have, of course, questions far away, but um, weekly Wheatley Walk is the 17 townhouse development subdivision of townhouses along Town Pike. It was formerly the Jeffy property. You've heard about it for many months. It seems like, and Megan, weigh in if I'm wrong, but I think I read that they have in accordance with the zoning officer, the township engineer, and have completed the documents required by the solicitor's office. So it would be an action item for you at your next meeting. Am I correct? Megan?
That's correct, Van.
Thank you. Questions on that one? Next,
Wait, wait,
February.
that's okay, you couldn't see him. Jim, you had a question? Yes, please. Hi, Jim.
And Van, just a quick question. Will the plans for the subdivision be available prior to next week's meeting?
Well, the plans we have are available anytime, and as I understand it, the submission documents will happen after they've agreed to make changes. They want to go through the approval process first, and then those plans will be submitted. They're touch-up plans. but,
Van, Megan can answer that as well. So,
They're actually also linked if you go on to the agenda that's online.
Yes?
You can click on the link here, and then it'll pull up the entire packet, which includes the
Is that
site.
the final plans, though?
Yes.
Right? Okay. Super, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Van.
Thank you. Next, the report on the zoning hearing 22-01-309 Town Pike. That was considered and approved by the zoning hearing board, subject to conditions that were read into the record and put on by the solicitor's office, many of which the plan review committee had talked about, and it was simply a matter of making sure that everyone understood the constraints of the approval relative to the use of that property. Use was permitted. You might remember they had asked for a variance to the required amount of parking that would be provided on site. They met that test, and subject to the conditions that they've agreed to, will were approved, and a use and occupancy permit is in progress. They have some more work to do on that score, but far that is a project that I expect to be administratively approved in the next month or two. Questions on that one? Looking for hands. Next, zoning map amendment. You'll remember a zoning has 2 important compounds. 75 Morris Road. It's at the beginning of the process. The neighbors have been notified. I've received probably a half a dozen phone calls from neighbors. I'm sure many will be in attendance. It will start the public meeting process next February the 9th. And you might remember we discussed the proposal will be accompanied by a voluntary deed restriction that they will only use, if rezoned, they will only use property for educational purposes. Is by the MC, particularly as a day school. Details to follow, but that's sort of the conceptual picture so far. Do we have questions on that one? And then finally, a new application before the zoning hearing board, 621 West Prospect Avenue. It's a residential property in the R1 district. They are proposing to construct a 5,000 square foot accessory building, which would function like a garage, but in include other activities as well. I think I mentioned, some of you know that it was processed. I declined to approve it based on the theory of that the use, at least as currently constituted, it was not accessory and customarily incidental. It may be a very attractive building and it may be approved, but my decision was that it needed to be heard by the zoning hearing board. So they have availed themselves of that process. That will be heard February 22nd. And we always mention, this is not a garden variety kind of variance. It's a little out of the ordinary. And it is the type of application that will ask you, the board, if you have an interest. You don't have to decide tonight, but you will decide at the next meeting. If you a party send the solicitor's office to provide additional testimony or at least hear testimony and participate in the record. Same thing, they're represented by counsel. There'll be exhibits much in the same way you heard us talk about last month, and elevations which will be provided to the zoning hearing board being a part of the record. So that hearing is February 22nd. It's notable variances of the determination of the zoning officer, which is custom to turn something down. The competent attorney is always going to appeal that decision, our decision. So that'll be on 2 Tuesdays from tomorrow. Any questions on that one?
Tonight, the first being the MS4 program, the outfall inspections. We're currently working our way through the annual outfall inspections. This is the best time of year to go about it because it's the driest season. We're just inspecting the pipe outfalls and, that go to the waterways and creeks as part of our MS4 program to inspect the condition of the outfalls to make sure that there's no structural damage and to note it if there are. The second is the phase. There are many projects that we're currently working on to improve the stormwater infrastructure of the township, like Dickerson Road and Meadowbrook. Right now, there's not much going on out in the field, but it's mostly going through the design phase. We'll continue to review with the township before we start phases go.
Nick, I have a question.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Can you explain what outfall means?
An outfall is basically just the large pipes that all of the inlets and the pipes go toward, and then they outfall into the creeks or waterways. So if you usually see like the culverts and the large pipes in creeks and different. To see if there's any.
How many do you have in the township?
Not get you the answer.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving right along, the next items, staff departmental reports. So it's basically 10 through 14. Those would all be ripe for consideration on the consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions about those? So it will be the meeting minutes, the staff reports, as well as the disposition of records. Good. Okay. Work museum commissions regulations regarding records. So we do pass it back to you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve Thomas Colbert as the deputy tax collector for Upper Gwynedd Township? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Do we have any public comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thanks. The next item on the agenda is an exciting item, and it's a bittersweet item, I guess I should say, because as most of you know, Dave Brill, our finance director, will be retiring, and we have selected a candidate to approve for hiring. His name is Nathan Crittenden, and he comes to us with a lot of great experience, municipal finance experience. He previously worked in Cheltenham Township as their Director of Fiscal Affairs and also worked in White Marsh Township as their Finance Director and has been involved in local government finance since 2014. So we're really looking forward to having Nate start. His start date is, he'll actually be here for our next meeting. So everyone will get to meet him at that public meeting. And lucky for us, Dave is still here. So we're not without a finance director. We have a great transition happening where Dave is going to stay on for a few weeks with Nate.
Great.
Back to you, President Hull. The next one's going to be the ratification of the authorization for this. It is the opportunity for held out there for opioid settlements.
Do we have a motion for the ratification of authorization of the township manager to execute all necessary documents to allow the township to opt into the opioids unanimously?
Great. Okay, back to the agenda. We have been considering the use of professional communications company for some PR strategies and communication options for the township. We've discussed starting a new weekly e-newsletter, as well as several special. The board has wanted to see where the board was landing with it right now. And the proposal is from Tom Gailey, Gailey Murray Communications. Tom Gailey is our contact. He has a lot of experience in public information, and that firm works on several municipalities around us for different things, such as newsletter development, e-newsletter development, surveys, and special projects. So sort of what I'm looking for is some direction on the scope of the proposal.
Does anybody want to start? Anybody have a strong feeling about it on the board?
I do. I have some questions. Yeah, I have some questions. So the ongoing communication support, social media, websites, editor, can we continue to do that, or do we need, part of the contract would be for him to do all that? And I think that right now we do a good job at it. So I wasn't sure if that expense would be.
Sorry, I'm going to
Yeah,
stop you
go
so I can answer your question. So as far as the township newsletter, the editor, I don't think we need any additional help with that at this time. I think it's really well handled by our staff. And I just commented on our social media and how well it's been growing. But as far as incorporating a weekly newsletter, a weekly e-newsletter, that is something that I don't think we have the staff to manage internally right now.
But
'Cause it's
social
something
media,
new.
social media, the website, and the editor, we can
We
still
can
do.
handle all of that, yeah.
Okay. Also, so for Lower Gwynedd, this company was used for a campaign to showcase the opportunities for developers to energize the business community. And they had a good response to that, and were able to fix some blighted buildings and things like that. Would that be something we would use them for, or just for weekly newsletters? Would we
You
do a full
could,
campaign?
yeah, you could use them for that. So they're basically available on a time and materials basis for the board. Yes, we'd like to have the PR firm focus on like the blighted properties we have in town and make a promo. That's all stuff that we could do.
Okay, and White Marsh used them to enhance communications with residents. And they created that email, and that they got good feedback from that. So everything that I read that they gave us, it looks like it would be something that we've been asked to by residents to get more people, more residents engaged. It looks like this would be a good way to do that. I know Whitpain, it increased their response to people getting, with, even though those numbers are increasing, it sounds like with this weekly newsletter, we could do some more on that. So there were a few other things, but I'll see if anybody else had any questions.
I can go. I felt like that price was a little bit rich.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I sort of put that out there for discussion tonight, because I also felt it might be above what the board was thinking about. So I think some of the things that Liz pointed out, and like you're saying now too, we could ask them to scale down the scope. So in the discussion, I sort of wanted to get the board's feedback on, listen, I don't think we need them to do the editor. I don't think we need them to do regular social media. Maybe if there's a directed campaign, we could have them work on that. But at this point, we really have that under control. The thing that we would definitely need help with is if we're doing a new weekly e-newsletter. That's like a new thing that'll take time to put together, to garner the list. I do think a new weekly e-newsletter would be a great addition to our citizen engagement and, reaching out to the community. We do have a good following of people already on our website that have signed up for our e-news. So we have a base of people that we could start distributing it to. But it is a great way for us to just push information out. And I know that's always our goal. So we can ask Tom, the rep at the company, to revise the scope of the proposal
Right.
and give us something that's more in line with exactly what the board's looking for.
That was my concern also. It's almost like a la carte. So
Yeah.
pick and choose. You're saying that if we choose not to have them handle certain things, then the price will go down.
Right.
I know that they worked with the school district with some of their blighted properties when they were reselling. So, I mean, I like the idea, especially, around the concerns around the blighted properties and trying to figure out ways to get rid of it if they could help us to bring, businesses' interest into those blighted properties. That would be interesting for me.
Excuse me. I think having a cafeteria style menu for the communications company is a good idea, so that we're not pigeonholed into just certain activities. So I think maybe, and I do think the price is a little rich. So I would like the idea of a cafeteria menu that we could just pick and choose, basically.
So that is the goal with the presentation. The thing is, if you elect to go with the weekly newsletter, that's sort of a big ask, and that would be probably a significant portion of the cost. So I think if we cut out everything, maybe we cut a quarter off the price that they've put out there, but we're not going to the biggest thing we're asking them to do is the weekly newsletter. So,
So what?
The audit communications.
oh yeah,
that
the
he would
communications
start.
audit,
So
yeah.
why that? Can't we just give him a lot of our information, and instead of him delving in and starting from scratch, a lot of what it seems like he's looking for, we could already just provide him. So that could save on some of the cost as well when I looked through it. But what did you think about the audit communication?
I think I would need to speak with him more about the purpose of that, because I think part of the purpose of that is to be able to provide content for the weekly newsletter. So in speaking to all the different departments, he would learn what do you want to get out there. But I think that's something we could also say we want to pare that back. I think I hear the direction of the board. I didn't hear, but I think you're in agreement, Ruth. I didn't hear something different from you.
Yeah.
So what I'll ask the consultant to do is just provide a new scope that is more revised in line with what the board is looking for your next meeting.
Because it looks like there's two things, like one, the weekly newsletter, and two, a campaign
Right.
for other issues. So we would need that separated so we could see the breakdown of that would help.
Okay, no
All right, thank
problem.
you.
Also, that we would be able to, from the various grants that you have been able to secure, to let the public know what, and you had your accomplishments that you had there for 21. So you have a lot of material to be able to, and obviously it's the presentation. I mean, if they can jazz it up and, make it appealing so that people will follow it,
Yeah,
it will be beneficial.
definitely. That's great content for a weekly newsletter. I wish we had a grant to report on every week, but
Well, and I think we just need to start small with it.
yeah.
So,
right.
I mean, we don't know what will happen, but perhaps as we start to work with this company, then we will want to increase their services. But I definitely think we should start small.
Jim, not to put you on the spot, would that be something as a resident, weekly newsletter, just kind of updating you on what's happened the week or what's coming up? would that be something you would like in your email, something like that, or? All right. I was just wondering because we've had other people come and ask, how do we find out? We didn't know about this. So that's why we were looking into maybe getting another way to get the word out about things that are going on in the township. But thank you for reading what we do send out.
I need on that to proposal for the next meeting. Does anyone else have anything? Okay. For Vice President Carter's section, we will have the approval of a fire safety service renewal agreement with Keystone Fire, asking for the one that's budgeted. The escrow, so there's a fire escrow that we have in place for a recent homeowner that had a very large loss in their fire in the fire at Carmichael Drive. So when they get their insurance payout, we keep some portion of the escrow just to make sure that everything on the property is secure. It's fenced, any holes in the ground are taken care of. They've done a great job in moving forward with the demolition of that property. So Connor is recommending that we release a good portion of that escrow. That's a decision item. Lauren, could that go on the consent agenda? Or should it not? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Next up, we have approval of the fire department volunteer tax credits. This year, an exciting addition is that North Penn Fire Company volunteers who are township residents will qualify for that, and we have a few that submitted. I'll just pause and see if anyone has any questions.
I have a question about the Ford Expedition.
Sure.
Just in terms of what the wastewater treatment plant went through and getting their trucks. What are we going to have any issues getting your trucks? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Chief, can I ask you to come up? Sorry, because anyone from home can't hear you. Can't hear your answer.
I'm sorry, I was just at a workshop over the weekend and a lot of commissioners were complaining about not being able to get like Chevy Tahoes and things like that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, especially since last year, one of our vehicles budgeted didn't come in until mid-December. This particular vehicle, they have a 2 or 3 in stock at the CoStarz vendor that we use.
Okay.
So thank you for asking.
So we are at item 23, the approval of the police chief to meet with the Civil Service Commission regarding the hiring process to fill a vacant police officer position and a promotion process to the sergeant position. As you heard earlier in the agenda, we have an upcoming retirement from one of our sergeants, Ben Townsend. So we would fill the sergeant's position and then backfill the new patrol officer when the promotion occurs. And we have the Civil Service Commission. There's all sorts of rules and regulations on how that's supposed to go. And the chief will be asking for your permission to start that process. Any questions? We have several items under Commissioner Dansker's section that are good for the consent agenda. So that would be item 24 and 25. There are waiver requests for Merck to, perform work on Sundays at various times through the winter and spring, as well as the approval of an O&M agreement for 732 Tomanson Avenue for stormwater. Next up is the item that Van was discussing in his report. The board will need to make a decision on whether to send the solicitor to appear on behalf of the township for the zoning hearing board appeal at 621 West Prospect. This item, you can just send the solicitor to observe. I think that's where the suggestion from staff would be, but you guys can make that decision at the next meeting. Any questions? And then we will have the approval resolution for Wheatley Walk, as discussed earlier, as well as item 28 on the agenda. That decision will be made at the next meeting. The plans, as Megan spoke about earlier, are available in the packet, and I encourage any residents to look at those. And you can also come into the township building and look at the big plans if you're interested. In Commissioner McNaney's section, we have approval of the walk on Sunday, September 18th, and the race on November 5th. I think these are both good items. Okay. Pretty quick on this. Also going to be putting this in the newsletter, the list of streets, so residents are prepared. Commissioner Similaro has nothing in her section, so that's a miracle. Does anyone have any question about anything that I went over? Because all that will be left is the open and paid invoices, which will be added next week.
Sandra, how are the roads chosen?
That's a great question. I might ask Megan to pull up our super fabulous map. Uh-oh, look at Megan's face. Is that hard? Oh, darn. Okay. Well, we keep track of when we pave all the roads, and we have a great map that we use that RV helped us create that took all of Willard Troxell's knowledge that's in his head and turned it into a GIS document, which is awesome. So we have all the way back into the 90s, the data of when roads were paved. And basically, we do it on about a 15-year cycle. So we look at we look at current conditions of the road as well as like who's been paved recently, and use that to make that decision.
When was that list created? About the roads and all that GIS?
Oh, that might have been last year, I think. Yeah.
That's the first time we had that?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we had the list and we had the knowledge in Willard's head. We didn't put it into the GIS
So
system.
that we could share.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
thank you. That's good.
Yeah, it's actually a really useful tool for any of us because even when Willard proposes his ideas of the roads to pave, I can access the map and see like, okay, when was this paved? It's a great tool.
And that was, I forgot to ask you about it.
And that the board did not raise taxes this year for 2022, but people's tax bills did go up. That is because the county had about an 8% tax increase in their assessment for our residents. So people are getting the tax bill now, maybe a little concerned as to why the taxes are going up. Those are your county taxes. Those are separate taxes which come to us.
Great, thank you for that clarification. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share tonight? Okay, with that being said, meeting is adjourned.